Welcome to another episode of Hiking with Jerry.
This coming weekend, I have chosen. Nice hand. Morning, we got about 9.5 miles to go.
How do I do an AT section hike? Well, I'm going to show you on this video from the planning to the execution stage. So follow me, let's go. It's what I've been doing all through 2020. And in this video, I'm going to cover just how I do that. The planning that I implement, and then the simple and fun part of actually doing it. So I'll cover a lot of the things I consider. I am, I guess, an ultra planner. Maybe you would call me an ultra planner. I definitely do a lot of planning. To be honest, it might be because it's a good way to pass the time, because I get anxious in a fun way as I approach an Appalachian Trail section hike, because I just can't wait to get out there. And that's kind of the situation I am in now. It's a Monday, and I got a section hike coming up this Friday. So I'm going to cover the things I considered for putting this hike together. And so the first thing when I'm getting ready to go an Appalachian Trail section hike, if I don't know where I'm going, then let's find out where we're going to go. So I have some maps, and we'll get some maps out here to determine where we're going to go on this upcoming Appalachian Trail section hike. Turns out I already know. So I use these little maps here that you can get usually at backpacking store like REI or a local outfitter store. Same thing with this map here. These maps I now use for planning because they're very easy to read and very easy for me to plan out a hike. So this coming weekend, I have chosen a section hike, which is going to be 20.6 miles. We're going to finish here at Chestoa Bridge, which is where the Nolichucky River crosses the Appalachian Trail, or vice versa. And we're starting out at a place called Iron Mountain Gap, which is right there. So that is 20.6 miles. Other resources that are available for planning the Appalachian Trail, if you don't have one of these small maps, it's okay. There's numerous maps available out there. As you can see, here's a Nat Geo map. I think Sportsman's Warehouse is where I purchased this, but I've also seen this map, like I said, at REI. Another asset that you have available, go to appalachiantrail.org. It has an interactive map, and you can select different segments on there by zooming in on the map and figure out what you're going to do from there. Another thing I use is an app called Guthook. So Guthook, I think the history of that is a thru hiker with the trail name of Guthook came up with this app for hikers to use in the Appalachian Trail, and let me tell you, it is worth it. The app itself is free. I think I've paid $16 total to get 2 large maps that I'm not gonna hike out of until probably the end of 2021. So it's really not that expensive when you consider all the information you're gonna get from Guthook. So some considerations on how far I'm gonna go is really what time available do I have. And for the section hike coming up this weekend, well, I've got Saturday and Sunday to hike, and then I've got to get back to work on Monday. Real world considerations. So basically I can do a full day of hiking on Saturday and almost a full day of hiking on Sunday. So 20 miles works pretty well. Probably can do 12 on Saturday and 8 on Sunday. So a couple other things to consider in the planning. Where am I going to stay Friday night? Because I really don't want to get up at 3:30 in the morning to show up by 7:30 wherever I might be meeting up with other hikers to catch a shuttle ride. It's a lot more fun to get up there Friday night, hang around a campsite, and then get a shuttle the next morning, which I'm going to talk about in just a minute. So not only are we going to plan the length of the hike, where we're hiking from what point to what point, but where we're going to stay on Friday night, at least for this hike. Other hikes like the 39-mile hike that I did a video of, which is here on my channel. We showed up on Thursday morning and took our time and got a shuttle ride to the starting point and then started hiking Thursday. So different scenario there. We had 3.5 days at our leisure. We were both able to, my friend Andy and I were both able to take off work. Not the case this weekend. So then we talk about how do we get to the starting point. Ideally, you want to put your cars where you're going to finish, grab a shuttle, and go to the starting point, spend a couple of days hiking, finish at your cars, drive home. And usually it works out that way. Along the Appalachian Trail is a microeconomy, if you will, and that includes shuttle drivers. One of the more well-known shuttle drivers here in the Carolinas is Ron's Appalachian Trail Service. And here is there's a plug for Ron. But if you call Ron and he's busy, he has numbers for other hikers, or I'm sorry, other shuttle drivers to give you a ride. You know, leave your car or meet a shuttle driver at a certain parking area at a certain gap, and then they'll take you to the starting point and you hike to your cars. Doesn't always work out this way though. Maybe a shuttle driver is not available. So if you have a hiking friend like I do, we have met at the ending point and then hopped into one car, drove to the starting point, hike back to that car and drive back to the starting point at the end. Not ideal. When you finish with a section hike, you rather get in your car and go home or head to get a burger and a beer, but you got to do what you got to do. And it's all in the planning for me. Is there a shuttle driver available? Is there not? And that's going to dictate how we execute this section hike. For the section hike this weekend, we've kind of figured all of that out. I mentioned the microeconomy along the Appalachian Trail. Well, we're staying at a hostel at Chestoa, which is just near Irwin, Tennessee. It's called Uncle Johnny's Hostel. Pretty famous amongst Appalachian Trail hikers. And we're going to stay basically in their front yard. They'll let you pitch a tent for a small fee. The next morning, we're all going to get up together. And Uncle Johnny's wife, he passed away, but she's still there running the place, is going to drive us to Iron Mountain Gap. Then we're going to hike 20 miles over 2 days back to our cars there at Uncle Johnny's Hostel. So we figured out where we're going. We figured out how far we're going to hike. We figured out where we're going to leave our cars. We have figured out how to get to the starting point. So the next thing we want to look at on the maps is how far are we going to hike on Saturday? And is there a campsite that we can see on the maps? What about water sources? Most of my section hikes, these questions kind of answer themselves because I usually hike shelter to shelter. I usually stay near a shelter on the Appalachian Trail. I don't like to stay in the shelters, personal preference. I'll pitch a tent near the shelter. But the great thing about shelters along the Appalachian Trail is they almost always have a water source, or I'm going to even say always, within a short distance of the shelter. It turns out this hike coming up this weekend, it just doesn't work out to stay at a shelter. The distance doesn't work out for us. Because on Saturday, we want to get at least halfway there. Maybe a little bit over halfway. We want to get 10 to 12 miles. So we're going to look at the maps and see where are the water sources? How far into the hike are they? What you don't want to do is pass a water source and all of a sudden you're at 12 miles and there is no water and you're really tired and you got to keep hiking. You want to kind of avoid that scenario. And as I said at the beginning of this video, I'm kind of an ultra planner. I think about all of these things. We talked about where we're going to start, where we're going to finish, the shuttle driver, and now we're talking about water sources along the trail, and that's where the app Guthook is so valuable. I can look on these maps, I can see where water sources are. One thing that you don't know is how much has it been raining in that area? Has it dried up? Last September, I was on a section hike in Georgia, September 2019, and water was a serious concern. They had been under a drought, so we really thought about that and planned about that, and we used the Guthook app, was able to find out where the water was flowing, and we were fine. And the Guthook app, it has great maps, shows locations of campsites and water sources, but it has real-time information. Hikers get on that app, and this is something I'll do during the hike. I'll get to a water source, I'll bring up the app, and I'll type in, yes, this water source is flowing really well. This water source, however, not flowing so well, don't rely on it. And so we'll get some information from hikers who have already hiked this section to give us some intel on where the water sources are. And for those of you who have never done an Appalachian Trail section hike, you're thinking about it, you're kind of hearing one of the great things about the Appalachian Trail. It is probably the most hiked trail in the world, the most well-maintained and well-marked trail in the world. There's just lots of information out there, like the things I'm talking about, campsites and water sources and things like that. So if you look here on the Guthook app, what we're looking at is about 9.3 miles into the hike, and I took this screenshot right off of the Guthook app. There's a water source, and it's a piped spring, so those are usually pretty reliable. We're gonna fill our water up here, I think is the plan. I'm hiking with a group of people this weekend, and you'll perhaps see some of them on the video. And we're probably gonna stop at this spring and fill up with water. And that gives us the flexibility of then looking for a campsite. That's at 9.3 miles, as I just said, as you're seeing here on the screen. We'll continue hiking beyond that, maybe make it to 11 miles, depends on how tired we get at this point, carrying a lot of water. But at least we have a plan. And if that doesn't work out, if there's no water there, that pipe spring is dry, well then we know, okay, we're gonna have to hike quite a bit further until we find another water source, and that's where it could get tiring. But at least the group will be aware of this. We'll know, hey, this is our plan. It may not work out. The important thing is we've got to find water. That's, for me, one of the things I'm always thinking about when I'm planning a hike, when I got a hike coming up, where are my water sources? Because as a hiker, my pack is heavy enough. I'm usually going out around 34 pounds. That's heavier than most of the people in the groups I hike in. I don't want to be carrying a lot more water than I have to, but it's also dangerous to not have enough water. So you gotta balance that out. Hey everybody, say hi.
Hi.
We're in the shuttle ride. Hey Charlotte.
Hey.
Yeah, just a raincoat.
So here we are out on the trail. We're hiking from a place called Iron Mountain Gap, and then tomorrow we'll return to Chestola, Uncle Johnny's hostel, which is where we stayed last night. We approached about 2.5 miles this morning, and our goal, it's just a goal, try to get on top of Unika Mountain, which is 6.5 miles, and we're trying to do that for lunch. If we don't make it, it's okay, but our pace is pretty good so far, so I think there's a good chance we're going to be able to accomplish that. And there's our whole group up there. There's about 7 of them in front of me. We got a total of 8 hikers on this trip. Having a good time so far. A little bit of witty banter here and there. Nice hiking train right up there. So mission accomplished. We made it up to Unika Mountain by lunchtime. We're starting to spread out a little bit. The last part of our hikers are coming up right up here. So mission accomplished. A good hike this morning. 6.5 miles. Ready for lunch and some nice relaxation. Charlotte, who gave us a ride, said the way to remember how to pronounce Unika is Ukissa Unika. Kind of funny right there. Got a nice lunch spot here. Last of the crew coming on in. So Michelle, high five.
Hey.
You did it.
Thank you.
Good job.
Lunch
Andy,
time.
little fist bump. There we go. Good job, everybody. We can relax, have lunch, and then,
Beautiful here.
hey Michelle,
Hey.
look my way. I got news for you.
What's your news?
The toughest part of the weekend is over.
Yes. Thank you, Jesus.
Not all downhill here, just mostly.
Mostly downhill.
Infamous words on the Appalachian Trail. It's mostly downhill.
You can never see the color.
And this is a nice little lunch spot right
And I
here.
didn't cry one time.
You did great. So in the planning for this section hike, water before a campsite was going to be important because we're going to probably camp without a water source. And this was on the Guthook app as well as on the maps. And you can see we have a piped spring right there. That's a really good flowing water source. So we couldn't have found a better one. All 8 of us have now filled up with water. We're about 9.3 miles in for the day. So we want to get beyond 10.3 so that we're past the halfway point, and then we'll be looking for a campsite, and we feel comfortable now that we have plenty of water. So that's an important thing, both in your planning and then obviously when you're out in the trail finding water, because you go through a lot of water. Probably the most critical thing you'll carry. So we made it 10.9 miles today. This might be difficult to see, but there's a string up there down to here, and that's where we're going to be hanging our bear bags tonight. Right now they're just tied off with the carabiner to hang later. And then about 100 feet this way, where we've camped out for the night, we all got water, as you saw, at the pipe spring at 9.3 miles, and then we just hiked until we found a suitable campsite. And we're kind of just spread out along this flat area here. And people are already starting to cook their meals. So it's close to 5:30 now. I would say that we're all pretty happy. Good day's hiking.
Hello.
Hello. And the tents continue all the way back here. There's Michelle, she's cooking her food. Nice hand. And then you can see, and I'm all the way back here at the red tent, and then Andy's all the way up there. Good days of work.
One thing that really sucked 2 weeks ago was I had my
Last day heading back to our cars. There goes Andy. This has been How You Doing Appalachian Trail section hike. We're on our last morning. We got about 9.5 miles to go to the cars. Might take one more snapshot when we get to the vehicles for the end, but basically you've seen it from planning to execution. So yeah, it's been another good trip. So this completes our section hike, a little over 20 miles. The end is right here as we cross the Nolichucky River. Back there in the trees is Uncle Johnny's hostel where we stayed on Friday night. So we are complete, a successful section hike with 8 people. First time I ever hiked with that many on the Appalachian Trail, and I would say it was a very successful hike. Fun time was had by all. Challenges were actually quite few. So pretty calm section hike overall. Pretty pleased with the outcome. This brings me to 210 miles on the Appalachian Trail, so got a long ways to go before I get to where I'm going, I guess.